Excellent. Okay, it is 11:01 on my clock, so we're right on time. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this live stream, this live discussion about how motherhood affects women leaders. My name is Katia Barry, and I'm the host of today's conversation. And I'm excited to host this conversation today. And I have invited two wonderful women to help me make this more interesting, exciting, and bring you as much value as possible, really. So I'm joined by Rebecca Hartwell, who is a career coach. Rebecca will introduce herself in a moment a little bit more. And Moni Stovold, who is a marketing consultant for entrepreneurs, but she works with many people. Molly is actually my consultant. I work with Molly on my marketing. And yeah, Molly will also introduce herself in a minute. To start with, I want to introduce myself a little bit more and share with you why the three of us think that this conversation is very important and why we should address it today. Well, I mean, the idea of leadership and idea of motherhood can be addressed every day, right? And last week there was Mother's Day, and I loved Rebecca's post. I mean, I've been following her for not too long, right? I think we've been connected for a while, for a few weeks, but I love the posts that she shares. And the last week post has really touched my heart. It was really personal. And I just jumped on the wagon and I said, hey, let's do this. Let's do this because it's just so important. So I'm a mom myself. I have three girls, ages 15, 13, and 4. And I run my own business. I'm a coach, a confidence coach for women leaders. And when my two oldest girls were born in 2007 and 2008, and as they were born, happened to be the economic recession, as I think everyone still remembers. I'm not sure, Molly, if you do, as you were a little bit younger. But so my girls were about like 2 and 3, and I decided that was time for me to go back into work. Of course, like a couple of years later, 2009, 10, 11, we still saw the effects of that recession, and I couldn't get a job. I just got refused from everywhere. I was relatively young, I think about like 31, 32, 30, 31, 30, something like that, but well experienced. And people saw me as somebody who was very expensive. Even though they liked everything I had to offer, they had wonderful feedback, but why would they hire me when there were so many people on the market available for so much cheaper? Now, the situation now, about 10 years later, is completely different. But back then, that was a push that made me think, well, hang on, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to find a job that is going to pay me, well, I don't know what, but it's pretty much is going to cover my childcare and maybe give me a little bit of spare income, because let's face it, childcare is expensive everywhere. And where I live in Munich is just ridiculous. Plus, it's difficult to find. So that gave me a push to go solo. And I realized that, okay, well, actually, if there is no job for myself that I want to do and that wants to pay me and that will give me all the advantages like professional and personal development that I want to have, why have it at all? So that was my journey onto establishing my own business. And of course, my children were the driving force at that time. Since then, I've had a different child, a third one, yet another one. And my husband and I, we've been traveling around the world. We just came back from 5.5 years in China last year. So I see my husband and I as being leaders in our family and setting examples to our children and showing them that anything is possible. So on this note, I would like to bring you, Rebecca, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you see motherhood influences leadership and vice versa.
Thank you. It's really good to be here, and thanks for that introduction. So I am Rebecca Hartwell. I'm the founder of 2 companies, both Demon Career Coach and Divine Feminine Wealth. I'm a mother, I am an author, I'm a shamanic practitioner, and like most women, I have a multitude of identities beyond that. And I think that's what I see in particularly the women that I coach, is that how to juggle all of these, how to make space for all of these identities and be congruent and also do the best that they can. And I have a confession regarding motherhood. I had my son late. I was 38, and within the first 6 months, I'd set up 2 businesses. I loved my son, but I was so bored with motherhood. I'd set up 2 businesses because I needed adult stimulation. I needed something to do. I needed something for my brain to work on, and we've made a fundamental mistake in sending women to university and allowing them education and then expecting them to stay home, because it's rinse and repeat. It's not about lack of love. It's about lack of stimulation. But then we are also pinging ourselves into these positions where perhaps we believe we can have it all. And I think, it is no coincidence that women particularly come to me for career coaching when they've had children, because they eventually go, I'm not who I was, I've become a different person, but how do I juggle all these roles and who am I? So I think motherhood really does grow us into leaders. I think it really shows us our edges. It shows us how nurturing and amazing we can be, but then we can also get really compromised because we can feel like we're failing at every kind of layer, because we can't do any of it well enough. So I don't know if that landed, but it's been a big journey for me the last decade of going, how do I be all of these things? And how do I maintain my sense of confidence, and how do I maintain a sense of balance? Because my responsibility is to the boy that I brought into the world. But equally, I can't just do that all the time. I'd go insane. So I'm going to leave it there for now.
Yeah, well, I have to say that really resonated with me, because when I had my first daughter, I got bored when she was 4 months old. I have to say, I know that many people are going to hate me for saying this. Many of my friends do, but motherhood came naturally to me.
Okay.
My first pregnancy, I just sailed through. It was just like by the book, all the rules, no complications. Everything is easy, done, baby, gorgeous. Everything is well with mother and baby. She was 4 months old. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do with myself now? I mean, she's cute and all, but like she just sits there, lies there. And like you, I didn't set up a business at that time. I actually had a business that my husband and 2 friends had set up. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do this. How can I jump in and help them out? And I completely understand. And I mean, it also resonates with me, what you're saying about educating women, educating girls, pushing them so early, but not giving them an understanding as to what is actually going to come alive. And I see this as a mother of 3 girls. I see this and I question myself as to, do they really need a traditional university education like what we had acquired? How is that going to help them in the future? So on this note, I would like to bring on Molly. Okay, like I mentioned before, Molly is not a mom, and Molly is younger than us. But Molly, the reason why I wanted to bring on Molly is to give us Molly is the oldest of 5 in her family. And she runs her own business and she works with people like myself. She consults us. I think age-wise, Molly can actually be my child if I started early enough, But yeah, I want to hear Molly's perspective as somebody who I would like to say neutral, who is a child or an oldest child in the family, and also somebody who works with women leaders, and she sees the struggles that people go through. So Molly, over to you. What is your take on this? Give us a little bit of introduction about yourself too.
Okay, so I'm Molly. I work with mainly women, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, coaches mainly, and help them just with their inbound marketing strategies and that kind of thing. And at the moment, especially, the majority of my clients are mothers with children aging from toddlers to teenagers. And most of the time, actually, I don't realize that they are mothers. I completely forget. It leaves my mind. And it's not until, every now and again they'll mention their children that I'm like, oh my gosh, you've been up since 6 a.m. this morning doing the school run, and you're just on fire on the call. You're delivering everything that you as much as any of my other clients are. And I think that is really shows is that mothers that I work with, they really are fighting for their business and the same way they would for their family, for their children. They know how, they have like this natural skill and understanding of how to get what they want and where they're going and how to kind of nurture that growth and how to kind of really structure their lives in a way that supports it, right? So yeah, that's something that's really obvious for me. And I also think just before even working for myself in corporate, I worked below some really fantastic mothers and women and businesswomen especially. And something that I really understood then is that, especially in teams of women, that the mothers would really listen to everyone's point of view, and they had a more of a knack for empathy. So I kind of see it as, when a child's really upset, even if the mother's thinking, this is a non-issue, whatever it may be, the mother would still listen to the child all the way through, let the child tell the story, be there to support, maybe offer a solution, and listen and actually genuinely care and engage. And I think that is something that in leadership, especially in my previous roles, was something that really shone through and just made mothers just noticeably better at managing teams within the corporate world. Definitely. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's great. So Rebecca, I want to get back to you and talk about your last week's post, which touched my heart, about the never-ending conflict of parenting and leadership. Share your insights, please, as to where the conflict is and what we can do to resolve it. Or maybe it's a never-ending story, like I've said.
I'd absolutely love to have some solutions, and I think they're a work in progress, because we are individuals within this socio-economic situation, which we can't change it single-handedly. So first of all, self-care. That's the only thing I can say. Aggressive self-care is what my clinical supervisor calls it. Aggressive self-care. Take care of self. I think the conflicts are on every single layer. But one of the things that you said, Molly, there, which really touched me, is that women with children are excellent leaders because they care, because they listen, because they know how to hold space with people. But one of the things that comes with that is the sustainability of it, because if you're doing that at home and you're doing it at work, that's exhausting. And I think as far as equality is concerned, maybe it's important to bring in my background here. My mum was a leader. My mum was a head teacher. So she essentially ran a business while my dad stayed home and raised me as an artist. In the 70s, I was brought up the wrong way around. And when I left home, I genuinely, get this, believed there was equality. So the whole of my adult life is me being deprogrammed and realizing that this equality does not exist. One of the things that did happen in my childhood was I didn't see my mother as much as other people saw their mums, because she was busy. She was out at Cambridge, she was studying, she was running her business, she was busy. She was very inspiring, but my bond was with my dad. And so whether this is sustainable to hold the emotional load at home, at work, and especially in corporate, how to move forward as an individual on career progression when you're doing that. It holds you back, it's exhausting. And I don't see this happening to so many men. So I think that's where the injustice lies. It's like women leaders are holding space for other people who then just overtake them, and that's why a lot of women drop out of corporate when they have kids and they start their own business. It's the ideal time because you can work around your children's schedules. But that means, for me, I was writing a book, I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was seeing clients late at night. I'm doing a 14, 16-hour day. This is bonkers. And looking after the child in the meantime, doing the homework. So the conflicts are just on every level, and that feeling of potentially failing on every level. Everybody else thinks you're doing fabulously. My VA thinks I'm a powerhouse. Actually, some days I'm on the floor, because I think, like you say, Molly, if you want something done, give it to a busy woman. Literally, she'll show up and she'll do it because it just gets added to the list and she'll do it. But is it sustainable? And the idea of the second shift, and even what's come forward in the pandemic, the third shift. So the second shift was written in 1989 with all these issues of women doing home and work. And then the third shift, where women are doing home, children, work, and more at work because we're in a pandemic, they're stepping into that emotional space. It still hasn't changed over those 3-4 decades, but we think we've got equality. So I'm not sure I have any solutions other than self-care, but I want to really note that the inequality is subtle. So it's like we've done feminism, but we don't have equality yet. And on the last point, I guess, is that there are men who come to be career coached with me who have taken on the parenting role, and they too go off ramp, can't get back on again, lose confidence, end up in those roles where they're conflicted all the time. So it's not gender, it's the socio-economic model which doesn't work. I'll finish my rant there for now.
No, that's great. I love it. And I think how you touch upon the confidence and identity, I think that's hugely important. And, you know, we change through life. Our identities change. Yeah, well, when Molly's a bit younger, she doesn't have children, she doesn't have that attachment. So she probably, Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, identifies herself as a business owner right now. You know, a free spirit, a traveler. Molly currently lives in Bali. That's great. You know, why not? You should, right? Then when a woman becomes a mother for the first time, she identifies herself as a mom. That's the first thing that comes to her mind. I know it did for me. I was like, all right, motherhood, here I come. This is what I was meant to, you know, like, yeah, my role in society, da, 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 da. Not anymore. My children are a bit older. I had a third child with, you know, 9 years after the second one. Although the motherhood issue is still there with me, I don't really see it. I don't identify myself as a mother at first. Of course, my children will always come first, regardless, but it's not that. And what I find in my own experience and from experience from working with other people is that once we lose that sense of identity, the confidence goes. It's exactly what you said, Rebecca. It happens with men at the same time, as much as it does with women. Molly, what do you, in your experience as an oldest child in your family, how do you see your mom and dad? Because your mom and dad must provide for you. They must be busy. They must have leading roles at home and at work.
Yeah, so both of them since forever have always worked. I mean, I was born, they had me quite young. I think they were 22, living in London, not planned. And my dad would work nights and my mum would work all day. She had a job in the city and she had a great job and she was total inspiration. And that was how they kind of did it. And then throughout my childhood, my mum worked as hard as my dad, if not more so sometimes. And it kind of came in waves depending on where they were at professionally. And it was great because my mum had this opportunity to kind of grow, and so did my dad. And then, but it meant that at home, I was kind of at home a lot with my siblings. And then it meant that we kind of had this very different upbringing. It was great on so many levels. And it's similar actually to what you were talking about in terms of, I really thought that equality was a thing, you know. I really thought that, well, my mum's awesome and a career woman and, you know, smashing life, and so is my dad, but that's, you know, I know that. And then I realized as I went into corporate that that's just not the case in so many levels. And also, yeah, I think that my mum managed to hold it so well throughout my upbringing that for me now, it's just kind of the values that she taught us without even teaching us and that is kind of how women lead, is they're not teaching, they're guiding. And that's something that I really relate to motherhood as well, is like leaders are just guiding you through, you know, encouraging and really believe in your growth, just like mothers really believe in their children's growth, right? And I think that is something that my mum always did, and she did it so gracefully that now when I come into this big bad world, I'm like, wow, this actually must be so hard because I'm with all these other women who are doing it as well, and it's just absolutely inspirational.
That's such a great view, Molly. I mean, thank you for sharing. The way that you have described it is just superb. I think, you know, touching on the fact that that your mom just led you by example. I think that's what essentially that's what leaders do. Leaders never talk about who they are, what they do, you know, how they do stuff. They just lead by example, right? And that's what I mean in parenting, both mothers and fathers do that most of the time. Mothers more so. I don't want to generalize here. I don't want to upset anyone, right? And of course, let's not forget about single parents, single mothers. mothers who perhaps raise their children who have special needs, or who raise them with various partners. They don't necessarily have to be fathers to those children or husbands to those women. And Rebecca's also, I completely agree with you that asking for help is a priority. Your health issues are a priority, because I've noticed that myself from very earlier on. Actually, that's one of the earliest lessons that my oldest daughter had taught me, is that I can push as much as I can and I will get it done, but I will get burnt out very, very quickly. And if I don't figure out how to look after myself now, today, not tomorrow, not next month, not next year when Christmas comes, today, she's not going to be looked after. My husband is not going to be looked after. The kitchen will be a mess. There will be no work done. We all know that. Yeah, exactly. So I want to jump onto the transferable skills that motherhood brings with itself. We've already mentioned things like empathy and multitasking. And what really is close to my heart, what I see a lot, is delegation and negotiation. I think as mothers, as fathers as well, again, but more as mom, we are there, we get really down, especially when the children are small, yeah, we kneel down, we'll look them in the eye, we'll make that eye contact, and we negotiate. And I have to, like, honestly speaking, when I go into the business world, I have no problems with negotiating. And I love establishing their eye contact. And I can see people who are not experiencing that, their eyes, they always go somewhere. They just can't hold that. I don't want to say pressure, but they can't hold that attention. And the same goes for delegation. I'm very happy to delegate lots of tasks at home now. My husband is luckily very helpful and open with helping me. And I know, but there is a bit of a conflicting situation where we want to delegate, but often we think, but I'm the best. I know I'm the best. Who is going to look after my child better than me? And the same goes at work. But who is going to look after my team better than me? I know it best. So there's that. Rebecca, what do you think about the transferable skills that women mothers bring into their work?
I think it's a really fascinating thing, and I totally resonate with your idea of I'm going to name it for myself as impatience. It's like, oh, it's just quicker if I do it myself. And actually that ability to stand back and watch the boy do what he needs to do without interfering, that ability to stand back and give people tasks and empower them. This is what they need. Trust that they might not do it my way, but they'll do it their way really well. I did a fascinating bit of career coaching a long time ago. I started in maternity coaching, so this was a really interesting area for me. And there was one individual there, and she'd given me permission to share this story. So she was a single mum, and she was the mother of 3 children, so 2 boys and 1 girl, and they went to 3 different schools. So as a single mother, by 9 o'clock in the morning, the amount of negotiation, project management, all the skills that we bring, all the agility, all the negotiation, all the delegation that we expect from leadership, she had done that by the time she got to her desk at 9 o'clock in the morning. But interestingly enough, she wasn't claiming it as such. She was calling it motherhood. So a lot of the work I do with new mums is about this ownership of the skills that they're gaining in motherhood, that they can then reframe and take out into leadership, because we just don't own them. And as women, we don't own them. And as mothers, we don't own them, because motherhood is invisible. There's no mirrors. It's absolutely invisible, thankless, loving, but thankless task. So when we're at work, we get appraisals, we get office parties, we get bonuses, or if we're good. In motherhood, you don't get any of that. If the child is well behaved, the child gets praise. If the child does well, and the child makes a mess of something, then it comes back on the parents. So it's a really thankless task, and we can become really very bad at internalizing those skills. But yes, so I think claiming the skills that come from motherhood is pivotal to returning to work. I think, and keeping on claiming them, reframing them in professional language is the way that we can actually make progress at work.
Molly, what do you think, the women that you work with, how do you see the skills of motherhood reflect in their work activities?
The drive, I think, of the mothers that I work with always just astonishes me. constantly driving for what they believe in, and also they have the alignment. It's not, with every single mother that I work with, they're so in alignment with what they are offering. They really know what they are offering to the world and their business, and they know how they want to do it. I help them get there, but they know how they want to do it. They know who they are, and they know what they want to achieve, and they know why they're doing it. And they're backed by this superpower of wanting to support their family or do it for their family or leave a legacy or whatever it may be. And I think that is something that really pulls through with every single mother I work with. It's just this drive from not chasing money, not chasing professional growth or whatever. It's really just like this alignment and knowing of who they are and where they want to go, and a commitment to that. Yeah.
This is great. This is great. I love it. Well, as we are almost coming to the end of our chat today, let's talk about some tips and strategies that we can share with everyone who is going to listen to this, is listening, and we're going to listen to the replay. Rebecca, what tips or maybe strategies you might have for mothers of any level, starting from new mothers up to, there was a person actually a woman who responded to this event yesterday, and she said that her children have already left, but she still felt like this conversation was very applicable to her. So what advice would you have for us, for moms in business?
Well, where I started, which is claiming the skills, translating them. And I think women particularly, and mothers, can fall into that place where either they can do something or they can't. So that, either that it's easy or they can't. So we're working at a deficit as far as our confidence is concerned. Whereas a man will say quite clearly, this is something that I can do. A woman will say it's easy. So I think language is really important. I think space. I think I'm working quite heavily with the divine feminine and the divine masculine right now. So all human beings need the divine feminine and the divine masculine. This isn't about gender. And I think we've been triggered by going into work, into our masculinity a lot. We have to be masculine, we have to be active, we have to be doing. So there's something about, however small it is, regularly taking those spaces, those reflective spaces, even if it's 5 minutes away from everything, go and stand on the lawn barefoot with, take your heels off. There are loads of leaders all over London at the moment who go and take their heels off and stand on a bit of green space just to ground themselves and get into that reflective space where we're not action and doing, because the tick list is very satisfying when we tick it, and it's also very long, but we can't keep doing that without stopping. So that self-care element, that reflective, that get into the feminine, that allow us ourselves to receive, because if we're not full, we cannot give, and we give all the time. So that's what I'm calling for, is a little bit of space. Those are my two.
That's great. Thank you. Molly, what about you? What advice would you have for moms, for leaders?
So I think taking time to kind of cultivate joy, so get a feeling of happiness before you start the workday. So getting in that kind of energy space of like, I am happy to be here, no matter what's going on at home. I'm happy to be here to show up for work and myself. And the way to do that for me that works is, before I open any screen, meditate for 5 minutes and just think about like what makes you happy and why you're doing it. Not the money, not the tasks, but like the feeling, like why did you start this, and try and connect with that feeling. And then before bed, just take a few minutes to just, in your mind, just go through and plan what you've got to do for the next day, and also just take a little note to give yourself credit for everything that you've achieved that day, and maybe even what you're grateful for. So you're going to bed with that feeling of like accomplishment and joy, and you're waking up with this feeling of like happiness and like, again, kind of that feeling to get started and get ready to go, Yeah, that's something I suggest.
Oh yeah, I really love this. Thank you. It's a tip for myself. I'll take that one. I have to say, I'm quite good. Recently, I've been practicing exactly that, and especially mornings can be a little bit too hectic. But evenings when I go to bed, everyone has the time. Everyone has a minute or two before they crash completely to just appreciate. Yeah, appreciate the day, appreciate what we have. Just be grateful for what there is. So that's just a good reminder. I think, Molly, as a marketing consultant, I encourage you, go and post that everywhere and just throw it at people, throw it at your clients, and just on social media, because that's a great reminder. And yes, go on, Rebecca.
I was just going to spread that out a little further, because that's something I also use and drill into my clients. But what my husband and I have started doing is sharing our 5 gratitudes and our 5 did wells together. And quite often our gratitudes then end up around each other. I'm really grateful that you did that. And then we're part of a system. So when we remember to do it, then it's a really heartfelt experience, instead of going to bed going, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. It's what did we do for each other, but naturally. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good reminder too. And Rebecca, I also encourage you to go and post that across social media too, please.
Okay.
and set it as a reminder. Maybe every Sunday. Did you do that? And the same actually goes with children. I actually heard someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone said they practice that with their children. What have I done well today? What could I have done better as a mother? And of course, the same goes for a leading position at work. We tend to talk with people that we work with our colleagues. We tend to ask for feedback, but we don't really ask for feedback at home. And I think that's where the reverse relationship from leadership into motherhood, into home can work well. They are so interconnected. I would like to share a couple of tips from myself. First of all, dealing with guilt. Moms always have it. It's a never-ending story. It will never end, regardless of how good you are, how good your kids are, what a brilliant support network you might have. The guilt will always be there. It will never go away. So just accept it. It's there. Welcome it. Thank it for being there. Again, appreciate it. Be grateful, and just move on. And don't let it bother you. And I have to say, especially as a new mom, I dealt with a lot of guilt. I'm getting so much better. I've had my 3rd child when my first daughter was 10, the second one was 9. By the time the 3rd one came, I really couldn't care any less. It was, what they say about 3rd and 4th children, it's true. It's true. There are some things that I'd say, certain extents I go to that maybe are a little bit too far, but then again, this is my life. And this is another tip, is that you're doing a great job, regardless of what people say. As long as you do not abuse your child verbally or physically, you are there for your child, you are doing a great job. No one will tell you that. That's the thing about motherhood. No one will tell you. As a boss, as a manager, as a business owner, people will applaud you and they will say, you're doing great. You're such an inspiration. You've achieved these numbers. You're a strong woman, Rebecca. Yay, way to go. But as a mom, no one will tell you that. And you only get it in a feeling of love from your own children. When they're small, it's lovely to cuddle them. When they're bigger, well, it's, when they're teenagers, Rebecca, you and I, it's just lovely when they just raise an eyebrow. That's already good enough. But I'm sure that as they get older, as we get older, further in this parenting journey, there will be so much more joy, like Molly said. Parenting is hard. Parenting never gets easy. People think, as a new parent, you think, oh, it's going to get easier. They're going to grow out of this. Exactly, Rebecca. No, it does not get easier. It becomes more and more challenging with every stage, with every milestone. There is a new challenge with the children, but also with yourself as a parent. It never gets easier. It's the mental effect it has on us. It's huge. But what I try to remember, what Molly has said, is have fun with it. At the end of the day, why do you have children?
Yeah.
Now, why are you leading a company or a team? For fun. Yes, it's money, of course, but when it comes to work, children know. They actually cost you money, but it doesn't matter. Just have fun with what you have. Have fun with parenting as well as have fun with work.
Yeah.
Only then will you be able to go to bed at night and actually be grateful for all you have and not think about all the frustrating, all the negative issues that come up. So, ladies, one last word. Yeah, if you have one last comment you would like to make, please.
I agree. The 2 roles are entirely interconnected. And I think if we can frame it right, one feeds the other, both ways. The ebb and the flow. And as you say, parenting doesn't get easier. My friend said it gets different. You know, it doesn't get easier. Just
Exactly.
gets different. But the challenges that arise with me and my son, and the challenges that arise with me and my business, they're not dissimilar. You know, it's like if you can share those bits of information and those curiosities and those learnings across into those two areas, translate, then you know, you're set. So long as you take care of yourself.
Great. Rebecca, where can people find you and approach you if they need career coaching?
Lovely. You will find me at demoncareercoach.co.uk and on LinkedIn. Rebecca Hartwell, come and find me, and we'll see what we can carve out. My specialism is when people have gone, ooh, these are all the rules, I've done all the things, I haven't got what I want, and this isn't actually what I want to be doing. So what do I really heartfully, purposefully want to be doing? That's my joy.
Fantastic. And Molly, last words of wisdom, and also please share where people can find you for your great service that you provide.
Last words of wisdom. Well, rather than wisdom, I think just a thanks and appreciation. The mothers that I work with and just everyone who's showing up, you really are so inspiring to us newbies. So yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me today, Katya. It was so lovely to meet you, Rachel. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Molly Stovold. If you need help with your marketing or strategy, inbound is my speciality, and I'd be happy to help.
All right, that's great. Well, thank you so much. I'm Katya Barry. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Katya Barry, Instagram at Katya Barry. That's Katya Barry. It's a very easy name, but gets misspelled and mispronounced all the time. That's all right. I'm used to it. Yes. So thank you so much. I wish you all a wonderful day. Great weekend. All the best. Let's stay in touch and let's continue this conversation.
Lovely.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.